This video is brought to you by Public.com. The world is changing. Over the last few years, more and more businesses rushed online as their physical storefronts got shut down because of the pandemic. Unlike physical buildings, the internet provides us all with global reach 24/7. But that global reach works both ways. Over 30,000 websites are hacked every single day. That's pretty crazy. That's also why Microsoft's cybersecurity business is their fastest growing division. It now brings in over $15 billion per year, which is up 40% year over year. But Microsoft isn't the only player in this space, and they're actually not the top player either. Want to know which companies are taking on this tech giant for the cybersecurity throne? My name is Alex, and I'll show you by looking at the science behind these stocks. Let me start by addressing the elephant in the room. We're clearly in a bear market, and stocks could fall much further in the near future. You know it, and I know it. So keep in mind that all of the companies I'm talking about are facing real macro headwinds. But market downturns are the perfect time to be proactive and do the research so that you're prepared when the market starts to recover. That's why I keep sharing my research on my channel, even though growth stocks are continuing to fall. If you think a company that I cover sounds awesome but is way overvalued, just put it on your watch list, and then you can narrow down your watch list over time depending on what stocks you feel are right for you. And if you're not interested in growth stocks right now, I don't blame you. Also, I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't invest in Microsoft. In my opinion, Microsoft is an awesome company and a great investment. But the truth is that you probably already own a lot of Microsoft stock, because Microsoft is the second biggest position in the S&P 500 and in the NASDAQ. And when you buy Microsoft stock, you actually get exposure to a lot more than just their cybersecurity business. Cybersecurity is a very hot market, and every company faces fierce competition in this space. So if you want to learn what the leading companies in this rapidly growing market are doing and how they do it, this episode is for you. Stick around to the end, and I'll show you a pretty cool cybersecurity AI company that I don't think you've heard of. Let's start with the market itself. Cybersecurity isn't one thing. There are a lot of different pieces to the puzzle, like cloud and data security, securing endpoint devices, managing access, local and wide area network security, user identity protections, and so on. In fact, identity fraud cost 42 million consumers a total of $52 billion last year alone. That's over $1,200 per person, and identity fraud is just one type of cyber attack. Cybersecurity is constantly evolving because the threats are constantly evolving. It's not just about protecting websites and identities. There are over 40 billion devices connected to the internet today, ranging from smartphones and laptops to smart devices like TVs, watches, thermostats, cameras, speakers, and even lights. Each one of these endpoints is a potential point of entry for a hacker to do anything from exploiting security bugs to uploading harmful scripts that steal data and even damage every device connected to the same network. When you add up all of these potential threats and their costs, it's easy to see why companies are estimated to spend over $200 billion on cybersecurity by 2024. So there are a lot of different cybersecurity companies that are specializing in different parts of this giant market. Here are three that I think stand out from the rest. Let's start with Crowdstrike, ticker symbol CRWD. According to some of the best market intelligence firms like Forrester, Gartner, and the IDC, Crowdstrike is the leader in endpoint detection and response, or EDR, even ahead of Microsoft. Crowdstrike has a cloud-based platform called Falcon, which is purpose-built to stop breaches and respond to any attacks that do manage to get through. Their platform has three key parts: different modules that live on the cloud, their proprietary threat graph technology, and a tiny lightweight agent that sits on each endpoint, like your work laptop or your smartphone. The Falcon agent captures data and sends it back to Crowdstrike for monitoring and analysis. Then, if Crowdstrike sees that something has been attacked or even compromised, it can take action in a wide variety of ways depending on which Falcon cloud modules that client has enabled. As Crowdstrike develops cybersecurity solutions, they become new modules on the Falcon cloud that can be offered to existing customers without having to install anything new. And on the client side, the Falcon agent stays very small and easy to deploy. So that's how their agent and their cloud modules work together. This architecture is what lets Crowdstrike offer security at scale and at speed, which is why all of these market intelligence firms rank them better than their competitors. And if you want to become an even better investor, check out today's sponsor, Public.com. Public is an investing platform that gives you the information and tools you need to make more educated investments. They also have a great but totally optional social feature that lets you connect with like-minded investors, stock market analysts, and even fund managers who share their thoughts on the market. Public.com lets you invest in stocks, ETFs, and over 30 different cryptocurrencies, all in one convenient app. Public is free to use and lets you buy slices of stocks for as little as $1. You can even set it up to automatically reinvest your dividends so that your investments compound more over time without any additional work on your part. And as a way to give back, they want to invest in you by giving you a free slice of stock worth all the way up to $1,000 just for signing up with my link in the description below at public.com/ticker-U. Alright, let's get back to Crowdstrike. Another big differentiator is their threat graph technology, which produces a networked view or graph of security data across large business networks of servers, users, and endpoints. The kinds of data stored in the threat graph are things like lists of processes running on each machine, logs for command line entries, logins and connections for each user account, and so on. Representing all of this security data as a graph allows Crowdstrike to build a lot of different capabilities on top of it. For example, Threat Graph allows multiple different detection methods to run at the same time, like checking the network data against a list of known malware attacks, using machine learning to identify normal behavior patterns on the network and flag anomalies, and so on. The endpoints and users aren't bogged down by all of these processes running at once because the Falcon platform and this Threat Graph are on the cloud. These are Crowdstrike's cloud modules. Currently, the Falcon platform has 22 modules spanning the entire security spectrum to do things like manage the antivirus and firewall software on each endpoint, manage the configurations and processes running on virtual machines, quarantine malicious files on one computer and hunt that file down across the rest of the network, and protect users by flagging old user accounts and weak passwords, scanning emails for phishing attempts, and a lot more. As CrowdStrike expands their threat graph by collecting and analyzing new kinds of data, they can keep building new modules for their customers to subscribe to. This also gives CrowdStrike a very deep moat and makes them very sticky. All of these modules and services can replace multiple cybersecurity applications from their competitors. So a competitor would have to provide many much better or much cheaper solutions to replace CrowdStrike once they're entrenched with the company. That's why 15 of the top 20 banks, 65 of the Fortune 100, and over half the Fortune 500 are CrowdStrike's customers today. They have around 18,000 paid customers around the world, which is up a staggering 57% year over year. Even crazier, over 70% of their subscription customers currently pay for 4 or more modules, 60% pay for 5 or more, over a third pay for 6 or more, and they just started reporting the number of customers that pay for 7 or more modules. CrowdStrike is firmly in growth mode, with their annual recurring revenue closing in on $2 billion per year and growing 61% year over year. Even though they're unprofitable today, they're free cash flow positive, and they have over $2 billion of cash on hand, so they did a great job of capitalizing on their valuation during the pandemic, and giving themselves plenty of runway for future growth and turning a profit as the Fed continues to raise interest rates. The second cybersecurity company on the list is Zscaler, ticker symbol ZS. While endpoint security is about protecting devices from malicious threats, Security Service Edge, or SSE, is about securing access to the web, cloud services, and private applications. And just like CrowdStrike is the leader in endpoint detection and response, Zscaler is the leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for SSE, and they have been for over a decade. That means Zscaler is focused on network security and shifting it to the cloud. Here's why that's important. Years ago, most corporate networks followed a hub and spoke model. That's where they have centralized data centers and traffic routes to and from them. So if you wanted to secure a network, all you really had to do was secure the centralized servers. For example, you could have a gateway that verifies the right users and denies access to the wrong ones. You could have some files and folders with permissions that stop certain users from reading or editing them on the server, and so on. One of the challenges with this model is it didn't really secure the actual server itself. Think about it like this. If servers were stadiums, then legacy servers would have security checks at the doors and then locks on some of the most inner doors, and that's really it. Zscaler adds 2 things to that. First, it only allows each person to see the parts of the stadium that they're authorized to see. And second, it escorts them to and from exactly where they need to go. So if you're a guest, you can go to the seats and other outside service areas. If you're staff though, you can go through certain doors depending on your role and so on. This is called a zero trust architecture because even once you're allowed access to the server, you're still not trusted by the server. Zscaler's lightweight client sits on your device and makes sure that you have nothing to see, nowhere to go, and nowhere to store your own data except only and exactly where you're authorized to do it. It will also inspect any data or files that you're trying to take in and out and assign them a risk score based on what it is, who you are, and where you're taking it. Zscaler's Zero Trust Exchange will only allow you to keep moving if it clears you, the file, and the end-to-end path being taken. Checking the path is important because certain protocols like FTP are often used to try and circumvent security altogether. So the exchange keeps users and applications on completely separate networks and only connects them once all of these checks are cleared. Because everything passes through this exchange, Zscaler can capture the context of what's being passed between applications and devices, and then provide analytics and monitoring services on top of their cybersecurity platform. There's one more thing that I want to point out about Zscaler, which is their Net Promoter Score. If you don't know what a Net Promoter Score is, it's how likely customers are to recommend a business to others on a scale from 1 to 10. You take all the 9s and 10 ratings and subtract all of the 0s through 6s, and the percent that you have left is your Net Promoter Score. The SaaS industry average is a 30, and Zscaler has a 70, so customers really like Zscaler. Now that we understand what Zscaler does and how they do it, at least at a high level, let's talk about their financials. Zscaler's revenue grew by 63% year over year to $287 million for the quarter, so they're expecting over $1 billion in revenue for the year. This is the 7th straight quarter that they've grown revenues by over 50% year over year, and their growth has actually been accelerating over time, thanks to the strong adoption of their Zero Trust platform. Zscaler is currently free cash flow positive and targeting free cash flow margins of 20% for the year. So at $1 billion in revenue, they're generating about $200 million in free cash flow for the year. They also have over $1.5 billion in cash and twice as many assets as liabilities. Just like with Crowdstrike, that means that Zscaler has a healthy supply of cash to fuel their growth, and they don't need to borrow much money as interest rates continue to rise. Alright, so far we've talked about endpoint detection with Crowdstrike and network protection with Zscaler. What else is there? Well, let me tell you about a company called Darktrace, ticker symbol DARK on the London Stock Exchange or DRKTF on the OTC markets. I first saw Darktrace on Time's 100 list of most influential companies, which is a list of companies that they think are shaping the future, according to their relevance to society, their impact on society, innovation, leadership, ambition, and their success. Darktrace was featured alongside the pioneers, along with companies like Roblox. So, from all the other cybersecurity companies out there, why did Darktrace make this list? Well, Darktrace builds their cybersecurity solutions to work like the human immune system. They're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to build a security ecosystem that can detect and react to new cyber threats that they haven't seen before, the same way the human body does with diseases that it hasn't encountered yet. Just like Crowdstrike and Zscaler, Darktrace employs its own agent on machines to analyze real-time traffic and correlate connections between machines. But unlike those two, Darktrace feeds that data into an unsupervised machine learning model to build and maintain a company's pattern of life. What that gives Darktrace is a model of how the entire enterprise normally behaves. The special thing about unsupervised learning is that humans don't clean up or label the data before giving it to the AI for training. It's entirely up to the AI to find hidden patterns, including ones that people may not have thought of. So, where Crowdstrike and Zscaler might label and classify emails as authentic, or spam, or malicious, Darktrace's AI decides whether an email looks like it belongs or not, and then reacts accordingly, just like an immune system. That means Darktrace's system evolves over time as it learns from cases that it hasn't seen before, instead of needing humans to retrain models on new data over time. If a malicious piece of software does something like open an unusual port on a machine, try to establish an unusual connection, or send data to an unusual location, Darktrace can tell it's not part of the normal pattern of life. Then, Darktrace automatically chooses the response that causes the least amount of disruption to the enterprise, since it's always trying to maintain that normal pattern of life. So if it sees a connection to an unrecognized server, like with ransomware, it simply blocks the connection because that isn't a normal part of the system, and then it alerts system administrators for further action. These kinds of capabilities are called self-healing networks, and they're currently the cutting edge of automation. That's why Microsoft partnered with Darktrace and runs their self-learning solutions to protect businesses that use Azure and Office 365. I won't go over Darktrace's financials because most of you can't buy this stock anyway, but hopefully you find the idea of self-healing networks based on the human immune system as cool as I do. I think that we'll see a lot more products and services like this coming sooner than later, and that's a future that I'm excited to invest in. Want to see another set of stocks that I'm excited to invest in? Check out this episode next. And if you feel I've earned it, hit those like and subscribe buttons to let me know that you enjoyed the science behind these stocks. Either way, thanks for watching, and until next time, this is ticker symbol U. My name is Alex, reminding you that the best investment you can make is in you.